guys, welcome back to another episode of our Old Farmhouse. Today we are outside on this bitter cold day to work on our compost pile one last time before winter officially sets in. Today's December 15th. It is freezing cold out here and I'm trying to get this done before it gets dark outside. Also in this video I want to cover 3 tips on things that you guys can do now to hopefully have better compost come spring. Make sure you stay tuned. As always, if you have any questions, please let us know in the comment section. Otherwise, I'm gonna get to work. All right, guys, with that said, I have out the Viper Earthquake Mini Rototiller, and we are gonna run through our compost pile one last time with this. Now, I got it started just a few minutes ago because it has been sitting since last spring, but it did start pretty quickly, and I've done a review on this in one of our other videos. For under $200, the Viper Earthquake is a must-have on the homestead if you're doing a lot of gardening. I also went through some applications in another video where this works outside of the garden, one of which is in our compost pile. One of the important aspects of having a healthy compost pile is making sure that it gets mixed up so oxygen can get in there. We've been getting a lot of rain out. Right now, I think our temperature is down to 24 degrees. Tomorrow's high is supposed to be -1, so it's cold out. We are going to get some snow tomorrow, but with that said, I want to get this done before that happens because I want to get the internal temperature of our compost pile on the higher end so that way it can continue to compost at least in the center throughout winter. Now, as you can see behind me, we have our main compost pile. It's on my right, so your guys is left. And then we added in a second partition kind of at the late end of summer, early start of fall, because we just had so many leaves, we didn't know what to do with them. Now, our kind of end of year for next summer goal is to have this partitioned off into 3 separate compost piles. I really think for the scope and size of our homestead that's perfect for us. But I'm out here, I have a bucket of different vegetables, a little bit of fruit that we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna mix in. Now, I have gotten a few questions about things like paper towel. You can see I have some in here, paper plates, things like that. As long as you're purchasing high quality ones that are non-toxic, so you read the packaging on there, those are perfectly fine as a carbon product to mix in with your compost. I just prefer not to do a lot or anything on the any cardboard that has ink printed on it or a heavy amount of ink, but anything like this is perfectly fine. Lots of vegetables in here. The bottom of these piles have lots of greens on it. You guys would know that if you have checked out our other videos. And then the top has a surplus of leaves on it. Now, I've been out here mixing these up probably every 3 weeks since the end of summer, trying to keep it oxygenated. Like I said just a minute ago, we've had rain almost every single day, so these should be pretty wet. I'm not going to be adding any water today because our hoses are all shut off for winter. Hopefully tomorrow's snowstorm, we actually get snow. This is the 3rd time they've predicted a snowstorm and we haven't gotten anything really yet. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get these vegetables mixed in, I'm going to get the rototiller over here, and we're going to make quick work of this. As you guys probably just heard, we just gummed up the rototiller pretty good. As always, when it comes to compost, you want to make sure that it's fairly wet in the interior. That aids in the breakdown process, and if it's not, you're just going to have a pile of debris just sitting around. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get this unjammed and we'll get back to work. All right, guys, so I just got the first kind of area, or the first bay of our compost pile really rototilled up as best as possible. As you guys can see, well, maybe you guys can't see, but I was able to get down quite a ways into the middle of this. This here is all dug up real loose like, and that is perfect. Now, I didn't want to go into the actual dirt. And I wanted to keep probably about the first 4 to 5 inches of compost at the bottom. I know that broke down really, really well, and I want that to be a barrier to prevent any water from seeping back down into the ground. Now, once the ground does freeze, this pile will probably have already been froze. The freeze and thaw cycle is going to displace some of it, and that's going to help in the spring when it comes to this breaking down even further. Now, my goal is to have this compost completely broken down for spring, or kind of late spring, early summer, so we can put it in our garden beds once we transplant the seedlings from our greenhouse into our garden. So that is my goal at this point. We still have a few months. Winter is certainly going to slow that down. That's why we're out here today doing the work that we can. So our first recommendation when you're preparing your your compost pile for winter is to make sure that you get this really mixed up and you care for it right before your first snowfall. That's going to, again, allow that to oxygenate, and it's going to accelerate the breakdown process a teeny bit over winter, not a whole lot, but it is going to keep this breaking down for probably another 4 weeks. All right, so now that this is broken down, we're going to go ahead, we're going to add our food scraps to this. I know there's going to be some people saying, hey, I seen a bunch of whole apples in there, stuff like that. They were rotten, they were bad. We're not wasting them. But I'm going to go ahead now, I'm going to rototill this in real well. All right, so now that we have those food products really rototilled in there really well, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna recover this. Now, again, I did not rototill everything. You can see that I got a good percentage of the way into the center of it, which again, it is kind of hard to see, but I did go probably 90% of the way down into the center of our compost pile. The leaves over here on this side, I left whole. They're not really broke up, but they are really moist right under the surface, and those are going to go on the top to act like a blanket. They're going to cover that up real well. Hopefully that will keep the heat in a little bit, and we'll come out here in a couple of days. We're going to check the temperature. Now, in that video, we'll talk about what the proper temperature should be for your compost pile. I don't want to get into it right now. Bram has been dying for that video. He likes coming out here and taking the temperature. Hopefully, I can convince him to do it because he does not like the cold. But with this done, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to cover that back up. All right, guys, so now that we're done with that project, I'm going to sit back here on my back bench, catch my breath, and while I do that, I'm going to go over tip number 2 and tip number 3 for how to prepare your compost pile for winter. Now, I already went over tip number 1, which was to actually get out, work on it one last time before snow falls. But tip number 2 is make sure that you're working on your compost pile over the winter months. I continue to add to it. There is not really any reason to dig it up and to rotate it unless you're in a warmer climate area. But continue to add to it. Just don't go overboard if you are in a cold climate area. Your compost pile is going to slow down quite significantly over the winter months, and it may even stop depending on how cold of a climate you live in. If you have a big enough pile, it doesn't matter how cold it is, it's going to continue to break down. Now, when I say don't go overboard, we have chickens year-round. And during the winter months, it becomes a little bit more challenging for them to scavenge food out of their chicken run. For example, in the summer, I'll cut grass shavings, clippings into their run. They love eating that. They love eating the insects that are part of it. They catch a lot of bugs, a ton of frogs out here. All things that really are impossible for them to find during the winter months. So I focus the majority of the vegetables that I would normally place into my compost pile in with my chickens to help offset their food and to give them a little bit of variety. Again, though, I'm going to continue to add to my compost pile that entire time. Tip number 3 is leave it alone. A lot of people are under this misconception that they have to get out and they have to work on it every couple weeks over winter. I'm here in Michigan, and I'll tell you what, I'm not coming back out here behind my barn when there's 3 to 6 feet of snow out here to work on that. I'm not going to get the temperature up high enough to sustain the decomposition of the compost pile over the entire winter months. By me getting out here and following tip number 1 and doing this now, over the next couple of days, that temperature is going to continue to increase, and that's likely to occur for the next 2 to 3 days. And then it's going to plateau off, and it's going to stay at a composting level, temperature level, for probably 2 weeks. After that, it's going to start to slowly dip down, and once it drops below freezing, it doesn't matter what I do, I'm not going to be able to get that temperature back up without making major modifications and without providing a heat source to initially thaw that pile out. That's okay though. You know, if we think about a forest, when you think of leaves and pine needles falling down, really the forest ground is a massive compost pile. Behind me are woods here. You can see all the leaves are pretty much off the tree. They're breaking down on the ground, and those leaves are going to freeze over the winter months. Here in Michigan, it's going to thaw kind of end of March, beginning of April. As that happens, it's going to accelerate the breakdown process yet again. The ground's going to become heavily saturated, as is our compost pile. That said, kind of near the end of winter, once it does start warming up and once the majority of the snow is melted here, I will shovel up snow and I will add it on top of our compost pile. That really weights it down and compresses it, and that will start again that decomposition process. You just want to make sure though that if you do follow that tip, don't use snow from around your sidewalk or off the street or from around the street where there could be salt in it. You don't want to add that to your compost pile. Now in just a sec I'll walk over, I'll show you guys what it looks like here after I was all done, but hopefully this will help you guys out. Hopefully you learned something today. Hopefully you benefit from the 3 tips. Other than that, like I said, I'll show it off real quick, and then I'm going to pack up my tools and I'm going to be done with this pile for quite a while, except for adding a couple of things to it. Now, even though it might be hard to tell on the video here, I did shrink the pile down by probably 40%. So this here was a large mound outside of our main compost pile. As for our second compost pile, I even added just a small amount of the cut up rototilled compost on top of that. But over here, I left it. I left some leaves out here I might add on later, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to. If I was going to do that, that wouldn't be until spring. So I'm gonna leave those whole ones out here. As I said in the video though, you guys can see I added a lot more of the whole leaves on top. I put in a few buckets worth of vegetables, as much of the green compost materials from inside. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully, like I said, you learned something. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our video. Please share it if you know someone that is into composting or thinking about it. And until next time, keep homesteading and keep gardening. Thank you.